because that's the goal of this cessation of work idea. Most people who have this idea of cessation of work is they want out of here. Work or involvement with material nature is problematic. Let me out of here. This place is crazy. It's negation. It's impersonalism. It's not take shelter of Krishna. It's just, I'm out of here. So Krishna is addressing that. Krishna is addressing Arjuna's idea that he wants to leave the battlefield. Those who desire to practice Ashtanga Yoga should not suddenly give up prescribed actions, but continue detached work until purified. In his case, the detached work is being a Kshatriya. Now, he has his reasons why being a Kshatriya has its sinful consequences, and I don't want those consequences, and so many other things. You don't have the adhikar. You don't have the capacity to stop work, so you have to do detached work. So whether it's Nishkam Karma Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, the starting point is similar. Clear? It's clear. Good. Then comes another verse that's important and often quoted. I put in red letters this asanyasta sankalpo, because in the Hare Krishna movement we're learning more about sankalpa and its importance. Have you heard that word before? Sankalpa? Sankalpa. So here's a vocabulary word for you today. It means intention or desire, the objective, like, I don't know, things that you like to do, and when you do those things that you like to do, what's the objective? And you don't need to answer, but it can be a short term, it can be a long term. Short term or long term. For children, commonly, children like to play. There's no long term at all. They just like to play. But if somebody says, well, you can do some play, but you also have to, when school starts up again, you got to go to school. And there's a preya, a long-term benefit. So the intention is the sankalpa. What's the long-term benefit? What does that look like? The term is often used, commonly used, in karmakanda rituals. You know what karmakanda rituals are? Rituals where people do something to get something. They do a puja or a yagya or something to get a priest because they want something. So they tell the priest what that something is. He pulls the mantras. He speaks the sankalpa of the person who's doing the puja for, and it invokes the devas to give the benediction for that desired sankalpa. And then you chant japa every day, right? A little bit. Every day? Dad's right behind you. Every day? Okay, good. And when you do, we put your hand in your bead bag. What's your sankalpa? What's your intention? So it may just be, I made a vow, I'm going to do, some number of rounds every day. That's it. But maybe there's a higher, and maybe there's a higher, and maybe there's a higher. So the sankalpa, the intention, is really important in life and in yoga. So for worldly people, they have a sankalpa, and that's sense gratification. I mean, it goes under different labels. You change this label, put that label, but it's sense gratification. So that's the yogi is one who renounces the sankalpa of sense gratification. And they have to put something else in its place. If you don't have that, you got to have something else. If you don't have something else, it's going to it's a Band-Aid. It's not going to last long. They do something else without a purpose. There has to be some shelter, some intention. So real renunciation is linking oneself with Krishna, for no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. That's that phrase, asanyasta sankalpo. What is called renunciation, you should know, to be the same as yoga. So sannyas and yoga are the same. In what ways are they the same? Well, that's our next slide. How are sannyas and yoga the same? And they have a common factor, a common denominator. See you later. Okay, sannyas means to be fixed in gyan, knowledge, characterized by stopping the functions of all the senses. So that's what sannyasis are supposed to do, cultivate knowledge. And on the strength of that knowledge, the characteristic of that knowledge has been well developed, is the senses, the sense activity starts to slow down, subside, and become silent. No karma sannyas, by being fixed in gyan. They do things, but that's not fruitive things. And the word yoga, this is Baladev, the word yoga refers to stopping the internal functions. So that's the desire or the contemplation, and then sannyas is the external. And that way they're similar. Clear? Question? Yeah, in this case, it's the cultivation of scriptural knowledge, study of Vedanta Sutra. That's what it refers to. A sannyasi, like a prataparu, not prataparu. The sannyasi who was arguing with Lord Chaitanya. No, in Krishna. Prakashananda, thank you. That Prakashananda Saraswati was saying to Lord Chaitanya, you're a sannyasi. And you're not doing what sannyasis are supposed to do. Sannyasis are supposed to study Vedanta Sutra and chant Om. They're supposed to not dance with and sing with ordinary people. Carry on like, ordinary people carry on. You're doing what ordinary people do. You're not doing what a sannyasi does. So please explain. So gyan, in this case, is the impersonal sense or the classical sense of cultivation of knowledge. So beyond the fruitive work people is and detachment through the karma yoga system, one becomes knowledgeable more of the soul and then cultivates knowledge of the soul. That kind of gyan. And being situated in knowledge of the soul, then there's stopping of the functions of the senses. You gradually withdrawal of the functions. So, and the yogi does that internally. Yeah. Yeah, check it out. It's coming up. You're going to see two charts, and it'll answer your question. But the answer is yes. Externally and internally. But specifically, their focus is on internal. But it comes in stages. See, what's going on, that's why I couldn't just do a gloss. Karma yoga, sakam, nishkam, one can achieve connection with me through nishkam karma yoga. Oh, and you can also achieve it through ashtanga yoga. So what's that? That's what's being described. Now there's the similarity between the two. What's achieved by one can be achieved by the other. Because a real sannyasi is a yogi. So in which way are they the same? So the answer to your question is yes. Chittavritti Nirodha. That's Baladev Vidyabhusan. Vishwanath says that a little differently. Sannyas means to renounce the results of one's actions. That's true. Nishkam Karma Yoga. Yoga means to have a mind that's a subtle internal function, which is not agitated by the desire to enjoy sense objects. Now, there may be desire, but one is not agitated. One doesn't continue to contemplate that desire and to fulfill that desire, because we know what happens when you contemplate on the desire and fulfilling it. It moves along to the next. So a yogi is one who has internally, subtly, they have control of the mind such that they don't contemplate on those desires, the desire to enjoy sense objects. And there's stages which we'll see. So next comes Krishna responding to the question, is there nothing called sannyasa at all? Should one perform prescribed duties as long as he lives? Is there a stage where you no longer have to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga? For a yogi, the answer is yes. But you start with performing Nishkam Karma Yoga while you're doing your meditation. Should one perform prescribed duties as long as he lives? For a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. For one who has already achieved, is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. That's what Arjuna wanted to do. Cessation of material activity, and his material activity being a Kshatriya, and I'll just go to a forest and live in a cave and, become a mendicant. And Krishna said, you don't have the adhikar. You have to perform your prescribed duty without attachment to the results. And then, it wasn't bhakti yet, but, it's a subset of bhakti. Okay, cessation of, so karma sannyas was his check-the-box preference. I'm out of here. Karma sannyas. Okay, here's one of the two charts, and this is from Patanjali. Somebody color-coded it, made it really easy for the eyes to see. There's the Eightfold Yoga system with what they mean over on the right side. And these terms that you just heard in the beginning, Yoga Ruruksha, that's the beginning stage, where you're obliged to cultivate detachment and detached work specifically. Detached work. And so yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, withdrawing the senses, that's part of the Ashtanga Yoga system. And then above that is the cessation of work stage. And we're going to go into it a little bit more, the cessation of work stage. Oh, that's yoga rudha. You'll see that term like 6 times more, so get used to it. Yoga rudha means cessation of work. That's the advanced stage of Ashtanga. So for the beginner in the Ashtanga Yoga system, they have to practice detachment, detached work. They have to do this and that and the other thing, and that's called work. They can't just constantly be absorbed in meditation. They have to do some work. So the first 5 are to help one be successful in the Ashtanga Yoga system while living their life according to the detached work principle. Okay, here's another chart showing something similar but a little bit different. On the left-hand side are what the yamas and niyamas are. And I'm not going to spend time because it'll take too much time. But if you're interested, we can make the chart available to you. 5 things you're supposed to refrain from, 5 things you're supposed to observe. Shocha, purity or cleanliness. Santosh, contentment. Some of you may have heard of the process of Kriya Yoga. There's a Kriya Yoga Institute. And Tapas, Svadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. It's not bhakti, but it's, surrender to some higher entity or some higher force or some higher powers or something higher. Kriya Yoga. Those are the don'ts and the do's. And then the Hatha Yoga is those four, asanas and pranayama plus the first two. And then it moves into pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. And then there's that word samyama. Remember that word? Atma samyama? Atma samyama, the very first slide. Atma samyama yoga. That's this dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Chapter 6 in Sanskrit is dhyan yoga. So it's concentration of the mind and meditation and then trance, spiritual absorption. So that's Patanjali describing the Ashtanga Yoga system. Now just a little, comical comment. In one of the main venues for kirtan and presenting bhakti teachings in China is yoga studios. And, there's various reasons why it's like that. And the government is now, they're controlling, they're permissive, but they're controlling. They allow yoga, but there are things in yoga class they don't allow. And what they don't allow in yoga class is the God word. Or anything that looks like it, smells like it, even has a shadow like it. There's law that says that's against the law. Without going into the detail of how they do that, that's their. So there's a few. I've been to 2 different yoga studios in China, where the place is called Ashtanga Yoga, and they show people doing yoga asanas, and they call it Ashtanga Yoga. And how it happened is, because I inquired, somebody from China went to India, studied under a yoga teacher in India that was teaching what he called Ashtanga Yoga, which wasn't really Ashtanga Yoga, because Ashtanga Yoga is this. And he wasn't doing this. He wasn't teaching his students to do that. He was doing the Hatha Yoga part. Calling it Ashtanga Yoga. So, and even the Hatha Yoga part, like, brahmacharya. They don't do brahmacharya. That's not part of the teaching when you go to a yoga class, is, celibacy. So it's not even, yama. It's not Ashtanga Yoga for sure. Anyway, there is Ashtanga Yoga, and it's not easy to perform. And in the Samadhi stage, that's the one on the far right, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, there's different objects. Now, those persons that aren't practitioners of, actually what yoga is, they meditate on something else. They try to get absorbed in something else, nothingness, or Om, but without really knowing what Om is, a mandala, a candle, spot on the wall. There's different things that they try to fix their mind on. A blank wall. So, in the yoga system, that samadhi stage, there's the 3. The jnani focuses on Brahman, the yogi focuses on Paramatma, and the devotee focuses on Krishna. So the principle of meditation and its absorption stage is in the bhakti process also, but it's in the lower processes also. So we're in verse number 4 of the first 4 verses. How will I know if I've come to a level to renounce? That renounces the, what was that term? Yoga rudha, right? Yoga rudha? Yoga rudha. Well, you can give up your prescribed duties. So the recommendation, yoga ruruksha, is perform prescribed duties in the mood of detachment and do your yoga, the Ashtanga yoga. So how will I know if I can renounce work? Because that's Arjuna's question. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Okay, so here's a little breakdown. The yoga rudha stage, these are symptoms, and if you qualify, then you can go on to become a yogi in the forest, which is what Arjuna was saying. Where sense gratification has three phases: desiring, engaging, pursuing. There's Sanskrit terminologies. Indriyarteshu, does not act for sense gratification or pursue it. Na karmashu anusajjate, doesn't engage in fruitive activities. Na karma asu anusajjate. Or sarva sankalpa, there's the sankalpa word again. Sarva sankalpa sannyasi, not even having a desire for it. So when that stage is reached, then you're ready for this yoga rudha practice of the Ashtanga yoga. Here's another way of saying the same. Here's the yoga rurukshu, where the neophyte is recommended. He has to work because he's not detached, not yet pure, not yet advanced. So cultivate. Notice he's got a little computer in front of him doing his meditation. He is cultivating detachment from fruitive results, practicing part-time asanas and perhaps pranayama while engaging in karma yoga. That's the yoga ruruksha stage of the Eightfold Yoga system. And when you become pretty successful, you're ready for this. Whoa. Does not act for sense gratification, doesn't engage in fruitive acts, has renounced all material desires, permitted to quit prescribed duties, nishkam karma yoga can be given up, practices yoga full time. In the Himalayas, where it looks pretty cold up there. No haircuts. We don't do that. Okay, so that's the first 4 verses. We've learned some terms. Yoga rurukshu and yoga rudha. You remember them? There you see yoga rudha. That means at that yoga rudha stage, one can give up prescribed duties. You don't have to go to school anymore. And you can do that instead. You looked happy, but now you don't look happy anymore. And then yoga rurukshu is, if one wants to do properly the Ashtanga yoga system, you have to, it's not an option, you have to continue work because there's propensity to work, but without attachment to the results. And you cultivate that detachment from the results. There's the yoga rurukshu, remember? So asana sometimes, pranayama sometimes, do your prescribed duties without attachment, and till you become qualified to do this. Okay. Now, here's a further detail about the yoga rudha stage, right in chapter 6, verses 5 through 9. And there are principles that are taught here that do apply to us modern bhakti yoga practitioners. And here's a little summary. 2 verses. The mind can be the friend or the enemy. And to not allow oneself to be degraded by the mind, that's when it's the enemy. And the friend is when the mind is conquered. And the enemy is when you fail to do so. So we'll hear. This is just a little summary of those 2 verses. And then 7, 8, and 9, here's the symptoms of that yoga rudha person. They have achieved control of the mind. They can give up working with detachment. Karma yoga, nishkam karma yoga. That's someone who has conquered their mind. They've reached the super soul. They see happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, pebbles, stones, and gold the same. Further advanced. Well-wishers, envious, pious, and sinners equally. That's really advanced. But that's the yoga rudha stage. So now here we go. These 5 verses starts with, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Now in this verse, the word mind is used several times. And the Sanskrit in this case is Atma. So someone might say, wait a minute, I thought Atma means soul. But we also hear Atma can mean the body or the mind. You've heard that, right? Atma can mean body, mind, as well as the soul. So our acharyas say in this case, Atma refers to the mind, since the mind is a central point of yoga, and that's the topic here, getting the mind under control. So that's Atma is used. It refers to the mind. It's stressed that the mind must be so trained that the mind, can deliver the conditioned soul. Whoa. Sounds really important. Like, we may think that we're supposed to deliver the mind, but the mind can deliver us. But the mind can capture you also. And what one gets captured in is Maya, or nescience, or ignorance. The root is turning our back to Krishna. And so it's nescience, or darkness, or tama. And it's a struggle once you're in there.